Hello everyone. We're going to continue our video from pretty much where we left last time.
Chores. Like in your book, you talked about how shocking it would have been to describe the husband's role in terms of domestic household chores. Like he's really turning the stereotypes on their head in this passage, right? I mean,
I think they are talking about here Yahushua HaMashiach, and if you remember in John, there's a story of washing of feet during Pesach.
Right. One time I was teaching a class in Greek and we were going through this passage
and she's teaching a class in Greek now.
And a man who had been a missionary to Afghanistan and Pakistan said, they would hate this passage when I really started pointing.
No, they wouldn't hate. They would laugh at that as you are laughing now, because there's nothing like that in the Bible. Nobody's liberating women to the point that they're suggesting the men are going to do household chores. That was unimaginable there at that point. And she's talking about so much culture, and she should know that in that culture, or even 200 years ago, there was no way a man had time to do household chores while his wife was doing what then exactly? Working in ASDA or as an accountant? Or what was she doing then? Life wasn't as easy as it is now, especially easy for women to make their own living, doing occupations that make absolutely no sense, like hairdresser or beautician or an OnlyFans model. Those options were not available at that time, so she had to find a husband, or she was living with her family, so there were people looking after her. Otherwise she just got basically kidnapped after 1 or 2 days lingering in the streets of Athens or Ephesus or whatever. I'm not saying that women are not capable of doing jobs that are meaningful. What I'm saying is the construction of the world we live in supports occupations that make absolutely no economical benefit or sense even in society. The economic system we've created, or rather the rulers created, makes money out of nothing, and the influx of money makes it possible to create these sort of jobs and occupations that otherwise wouldn't exist. People were struggling for survival together, male and female, man and women. They weren't thinking like these people thinking in terms of who does the household chores. That was just plain and simple who does that.
Out what it told them to do, because I mean, in those cultures to this day, right, the kinds of things that he's giving as a model, and then telling men to nurture and feed like you do your own body.
right.
Those are counter stereotypical.
Yeah.
We talked about it last time, so I don't want to waste time. I just want to give a little bit of context before we move on.
Models, and so what I would understand he's doing here is saying, okay, submit to one another. Let me use women as my primary.
Yeah, I think we talked about this mutual submission last time.
Model of what it means to submit. This is how you treat another person when you're submitting to her.
And there's no problem with that. For sure, submitting to one another doesn't mean what she thinks it means. Submitting to one another means as a servant working for the good of the community or for the family in this case. And submit means the same thing as it means in the next verse. Hypatasso means just that. To be under obedience, obedient, put under, subdue, subject to. We, I think, discussed this as well. So let's just hear what she has to say.
And what's so funny about it, that the passage is funny because, I mean, in the end, the men are wearing a dress.
And she's a professor, mind you. She has a book out, and she's talking about that the passage is funny and men are wearing dresses. I think it's almost sinful to talk about the whole Bible actually, or anything written in the Bible in this manner. She is. However, it's just so beautiful. For we are members of his body, of his flesh and of his bones. For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall be joined unto his wife, and then the two shall be one flesh. For no man ever yet hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, even as the sovereign, the church, or the ecclesia it is.
He's the head and she's the body, so who has the genitals now?
This is just ridiculous. He's the head and she's the body. This is I don't know if she just learned this, or she doesn't understand the scriptures, or if this is a joke from her part. It might be either of those or any of those. There's nothing funny about this. This is not a comedy as she's making it out to be. Nevertheless, let every one of you, this is the end of Ephesians chapter 5, in particular so love his wife even as himself, and the wife that she reverence her husband. Reverence is phobeo. Phobeo means to frighten, to be alarmed, by analogy, to be in awe or revere. So she should revere or be in awe of her husband. And this is a commandment from Shaul, or through the Ruach and Shaul, by Elohim. Fright, alarm. That's how a wife should think of her husband. And I'm not saying this is some kind of terror she lives under, but rather appreciating the fact that that man is willing to sacrifice everything for her and his family and children. If the man doesn't do it, then he is not deserving of this submission, neither the reverence. However, saying all the things she's talking about, like who is the genitals and all this, is childish. And if she is a professor and doctor writing books and talk about Ephesians in this way, I think it's sacrilegious, to be honest.
You know, it's right? She's just treated like she's a man. I mean, she's the body, right? She's like your body. So he.
Poor people.
He sat there and turned everything on its head. And what
No, he didn't. He didn't. And now everybody who watches this video understands that teaching theology doesn't work, because people like her are going to come out of those institutions spreading these kind of foolishness to people. And there's always going to be men and women who be in awe listening to this garbage, thinking this is something new, it's a new interpretation, and they discover fire.
Funny, I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, of course you think it's funny because you don't understand what's written. Yeah, of course it's funny. But there's nothing funny about this.
And he ends actually with a hina clause, and check this one out and see what you think about it, where it says, each of you, and it's funny, look at this in the Greek, because he really piles it on. He's kind of, each of you men, you, yes, you, I'm talking to you. It's very emphatic. Love your wives, and it's followed by a hina, so that she may respect or fear her husband. And so they say, hey, that's an imperatival hina. So they translate it as a command, and I'm going, what do you mean an imperatival hina? Check out the imperatival heinous. I would say that's a sexist category.
There's nothing to do with this. It's just plain and simple. Revere, and that's it. There's no need to be imperative there. This is phobetai, to revere, in the Greek. It's right there for us, present and subjunctive, to revere. Yeah, it's not an imperative. However, the meaning of it is to revere. So wants wives to revere their husbands because their husbands, love them. Wives, in order, so husbands, love your wives in order for them to revere you. All this, we need to see the original text and need to be Greek scholars. This is garbage. That's not true.
Category.
Is that a thing? An imperatival hina?
Is it? Not in my grammar. I mean, you'll find it in grammar.
See, you understand now why I'm saying that the spirit of Jezebel and the rise of the Christian eunuch? Because the spirit of Jezebel always going to find herself, Ahab, a man who is willing to yield and succumb and do anything to please women and other people. Saying the truth, never going to be popular. It wasn't popular when Yahushua Mashiach or Jesus was here. It wasn't popular when Shaul said this, and it's not popular now. What they are doing is exactly what the world teaching us. It's Christian feminism.
But, it's to actually say, obviously, women are being commanded here. And I'm saying, you know what? He's making a real point of not commanding women here.
No, it is a command. It's subjunctive. So it means in order to revere. So husbands, love your wives in order for them to love you, basically, what it's saying.
And he's actually talking about making this about reciprocity. These kinds of things get totally submerged in our translation.
There is absolutely no basis in the Bible for this reciprocity, what she is talking about. There is no equality between the sexes in the Bible. Not once, never ever, that thought emerges from the scriptures.
This is why it's wonderful to study the Greek.
Yeah.
Sift through these passages. Although these passages have a huge payoff, in Greek.
And she insinuates that we need to be scholars, and if we don't understand Greek or can't read, then we need somebody like her or anybody like her from a degree in theology to explain us that for 2,000 years, in all languages, everybody was reading this wrong because it was just something else. How come in Hungarian, here, it says the same thing as it says in English, and it says the same in Greek? Wives should revere their husbands, and that's it. So now they are going to explain to us.
They may not know this, like, Cynthia, I mean, you're obviously a biblical scholar, but you're primarily, I mean, you're a fundamental Greek scholar. Like,
yeah, now she's a Greek scholar.
Like that's you probably read Greek faster than I can read English.
Yeah, well, if she knows English as she knows Greek, then there are problems.
So I mean, any New Testament scholar has to know Greek, but some are like, they really specialize in how the language.
Yeah, they know better. So all the people who just know Greek and can read it, they cannot get the truth. We need Cynthia to understand the truth.
It works. That's your primary love area, right? Isn't it? I mean,
yeah, but if this is her specialty, then there's problems in education.
Discourse analysis
yes.
of the biblical text in the Greek.
Yeah, so now she has authority, so everybody else who just as much as she understands Greek, now they just cannot be true. I can find twice as many people who will agree what the English translations say about this text, and they are scholars as well. So now what? So everybody cannot be right. Understood.
That's where I did my PhD, and that just continued.
Yeah, that tells us everything we need to know about the education system in America, actually.
That has very much influenced. They use linguistics applied to the Greek, discourse analysis and how that works. Yes, that was absolutely integral.
Yeah. This is the problem. In theology, they teach us how to interpret scriptures the way science wants us to interpret it and look at it, and we get everything out of it what they want us to get out of it. But that doesn't mean that's what the scriptures actually say. So just everybody needs to understand theology is not like magic and someone goes to theology college as I'm going and then comes out and they just gonna know everything. It's the same as every other college or university. They are going to teach that discipline is that it is scientific. Scientific in this case, in terms of theology. That is the way of looking at the scriptures. It doesn't mean that's the right way to look at. And now we see why. And there's another thing which is interesting what she's saying now.
Changed everything, right?
Yeah,
when I
of
all of a
course
sudden
it
took, I did my PhD on the structure of the Book of Hebrews.
Now she's talking about that. She did the PhD on the structure of the Book of Hebrews,
which I'm still trying to convince everyone of, and I'm just
and now she's trying to convince everybody that she's right and everybody else has been wrong all along. And now cometh Cynthia and makes it clear.
I guess I have nothing if I don't have.
And just understand that somebody has to say that this is nonsense. We cannot just laugh with her forever and just sit here with our mouth open. This is nonsense. It doesn't make sense. And it's not true what she's saying. And the scriptures prove it, and the Greek proves it, and everybody should see this. Now, I want you to listen to this, what he's saying now.
That Paul seems to be really navigating this sensitive tension of maintaining this countercultural Christian perspective and yet not pushing it too far. Like, so
and now they are in the same wavelength and putting under each other the best kind of ideas, bouncing it of each other, thinking they are right just because they agree. And this again, this makes absolutely no sense what he's saying.
He often maintains kind of the shell, the husk of like what a Greco-Roman household might look like, what the church might look like, how to behave in society. So he's using the same kind of symbols, but he seems to be kind of like subtly subverting those symbols. And this is, I mean, anybody who studies Ephesians 5 knows that like this is a popular, these household codes from Aristotle all the way to...
Again, nobody, none of the prophets, the apostles, Yahuah, Mashiach, Jesus, Shaul, none of them cared nothing about culture or the context of the culture or anything that was in trendy or in fashion in their times. They cared nothing about it. They didn't try to balance nothing. If anything, there are similarities in terms of what Elohim expects us to do and what the world does. But those similarities exist until today. Less and less, thanks to feminism, for example. However, that doesn't mean that they are trying to balance something in terms of the requirements of Elohim and culture and traditions. Just think about this, how absurd this is. Elohim sends his son and he sacrifices himself and he tries to balance his requirements and the traditions of man. He cared nothing about the traditions of man.